Good afternoon. This is Rob Shumay along with Coach Ed Warinner, and we are joined by Jim Scarcelli from the great up north. Hey, Jim, how are you?
Hey, I'm Coach and Rob. I am fired up, man. We're up here in Michigan. We got the Lions doing something that we haven't done in like 60 years, man. I think 1956. I think is the last time they won a championship. So we don't know. We're going crazy up here. We've got faith in Big Dan Campbell. So we are fired up.
Exciting stuff, isn't it?
Oh, it's. Hey, Coach. These guys like the people in New England or Philly. Some of these, they're used to things. We're not used to this stuff. That's why, I've always been. We're loyal Lions fans. It just tastes and we appreciate it so much more because of what we've been going through. We finally got the right coach and the right general manager, and he's putting the puzzle together. And we got three tough game this week, but we got faith. We got a home crowd. The Ford Field is just absolutely loud and nasty, and they are a factor for our home team.
Well, back in the 80s, a real good friend of mine from Detroit, he used to tell me that the Lions are America's team. And I looked at him, I'm like, what are you talking about? The Lions are America's team. He said, everyone in America loves to play us. We're their favorite team.
Yeah. They love to watch the Lions on Thanksgiving. That's all they know is that the Lions on Thanksgiving, and now the Lions win on Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you clearly can't say people love to play the Lions anymore.
Yeah, but I saw some kind of printout. There's more Lions fans all over the country than any other team. There's more people cheering for the Lions. We got Michigan people that have moved and migrated. They're all over the place, and they're still true Lions fans. So, we got a lot of guys beat up on defense, and I got some thoughts on that game and that line. But Coach Glenn, what a great job he's doing keeping that thing together. They got like 6-7 starters out, and they haven't been back. So he's holding it together, and we'll see how we do this week.
Yeah, he had a masterful game plan this last week. I mean, he really did a great job.
Yeah.
Well, let's keep people in suspense as to the great Jim Scarcelli line on that game and the insight he has. And let's dial back the clock to, about a week ago. Ohio State played Texas. I don't know if you remember that game, but
heck of a game.
Unbelievable game.
To me, what I remember about that game was a 14-point swing there right at the end of the game as Texas is down on the 3-yard line. And if they go in and score and kick the extra point, it's a tie game. Instead, they lose some yardage on a toss sweep, 7 yards, boom. They give up a sack. It's a scoop and score. And all of a sudden, it's a 14-point swing. So life changes in 1 or 2 plays.
Yeah, Coach, I actually took Texas there, and it was 5.5. And exactly what you said, I thought about exactly what you said as the one concern you had being a factor in that game. You talked about Texas, short yardage, punch you in the mouth, get a yard when they need a yard. And that's exactly what happened down there. It was embarrassing. They could have, they should have. It was 1st and 1, wasn't it? 1st and goal at one time. I thought
it was 1st and goal on the 3, and on 1st down they ran the ball up the middle, and they did get 1 yard, but it didn't feel like they got much push. But they gave them a yard, so it was 2nd and 2 on the 2, and they ran a pin and pull toss sweep and lost 7 yards because no one blocks the safety on the line of scrimmage down on the goal line because he's not going to play 12 yards deep in the secondary on the 2-yard line. So he makes a 7-yard loss, and now they drop back to pass, and the right tackle gets beat. And the rest is history.
Well, and Sarkisian, to your guys' point, said we could not get any movement at all. And he had no confidence, even though he called that up the middle play on the first try. He had absolutely no confidence going in that they could do what you said, Coach, which was, deliver a punch in the mouth when they needed to in short yardage.
Well, and that's what you got to ask yourself. Can we win a national championship. Do we deserve to win a national championship if we can't get a couple yards with multiple tries? And they didn't believe they could, and they went to the schemed up play that ended up losing them 7 yards. And then, I mean, their right tackle was probably their weaker player on their offensive line going against the best player for Ohio State, and they didn't help him in the matchup. They dropped back, and they didn't give him any help with a chip, with a tight end nudge, anything. Yep. And he got beat fast, and the quarterback was looking left and got hit, and the ball came out, and it was over.
Is that why you think the play didn't work? Was that the fatal flaw in that play?
The pass or the run?
The run.
Yeah, the run was – that play probably would have worked out on the 50-yard line, but when it's on the 2, that same play, the safety was down so low, as soon as he saw the ball leave the quarterback's hands in the toss, he just attacked, and he's 2 yards from the line of scrimmage. So next thing you know, he's 4 yards in the backfield, and the running back's trying to avoid him and loses yards. But the safety didn't need to have any depth down there because of the situation, the field position.
But people that are listening and want to place action and hear wisdom, Coach, the point you made though was like that was what decided that freaking game down there. I knew
that whole game came down to that little sequence right there.
Yeah, it's like
Texas drove down the field, got to the 3-yard line, and they're down 7 points. 1st and 10 on the 3, and you need 7 points to tie it up and have a chance to play for a national championship. Give yourself a chance to win the game down the stretch or win it in overtime, and they weren't able to do it. And I know they can place the blame however they want, but I mean, it is what it is. They weren't able to execute in the low red, and Ohio State did. And Ohio State's been good in those situations. I mean, they've been pretty stout in short yardage, and they've been pretty good in the low red. And obviously that was the game changer.
Yeah, Jim Knowles has gotten better. I thought, I'm a Michigan guy, and I've watched him, and I thought he's gotten better short yardage. And I got to believe some of that is the fact that they got to beat Michigan, and they work a ton on defending the physical power, short yardage stuff. So, yeah, it was a loser for me. I was crushed at that.
Well, I think there's one other play in that game, and that was the screen pass just before halftime.
Yes.
And I talked to Tom Cousineau, the legend from Ohio State, earlier this week.
The Lakewood legend?
The Lakewood legend from St. Ed's and Ohio State and the Cleveland Browns. But, I asked Tom, I don't understand, if you're a defensive coordinator, why in that position you're considering bringing pressure.
He only brought 4 guys. He brought 4. Coach, I'm a defensive guy, and I listen and hear a guy talk about a play, and they said this guy did this. I always look at the fact that there was one defensive guy that let the ball outside the defense. If you take a close look at that play,
right.
That's what I was exactly what.
I'm going to talk. A great mentor of mine. I had one year with the great coach Bill McCartney, who had just passed. But I never forget that one of the most phrase he said all the time. If you played at Michigan, you heard Coach Mack say, "You got to know where your help is."
Correct.
You're going to play defense. You got to know where your help is. If I'm a forced player, I got to kick it inside. But there was a guy that he did not know where his help was. He went inside of a block, and then he got outside the defense. It was gone. Coach, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That play, you looked at it, and
he also said you have to read and react in that situation. When you're the guy blocking you makes a passive attempt at blocking you and releases, you can't. You got to react to that, and Texas didn't react to it.
Well, the defensive line, that's tough on the defensive line. I get that part of it if that's what he's talking about. But it was the linebackers and all the other guys that were first to step up, and they did get 3 big bodies out there. I think they got some big bodies out on that screen.
They did it, and it's like you said, when you're one-on-one, you're a DB, and a lineman's coming at you, you got to know whether you want to be on the outside half or inside half. Where's my help so I can spill the ball to my help? We call it spilling the ball to your help, and they didn't do that. And all of a sudden, that was a game changer for them too, because they gave up a big play there when they shouldn't have, because they were in coverage defense. They were back and they had dropped off, but they got their linemen out and they didn't spill the ball to their help, and it broke, and
So let me ask you, from coach, from a coach's standpoint, and Jim from a player standpoint, you played to a dead heat for nearly 30 minutes. A play like that happens going into halftime, and coach, you first, I guess. What do you do at halftime there? How do you change that momentum with your guys and
yeah, I mean, for Ohio State, that was huge, because now they knew they had the ball coming out the second half. So they scored and then have the ball back. So they were going to ride that momentum through halftime and come out the second half and go. On the other side, you've got to say, hey, they made one play. We made a mistake. The ball came out, but we outplayed them other than that one play. So you try to flip the switch that while the one play and it's tied, we still outplayed them that half. And so you try to build on that and reset your mindset and come out with we got to get them stopped, get a 3 and out, and then go. But yeah, I thought that was a big play right before the half. So I agree. That was the second biggest play in the game, other than that sequence down there in the low red.
And Jim, as a player on defense, you give up a play like that. What goes on in the locker room at half?
Rob and Coach, I mean, you're instilling and developing and instilling mental toughness in your guys from the second you meet them, the second you start interacting with them. You're developing that mental toughness. It reminded me of Coach Lou Holtz. They asked Coach Holtz, "Hey, Coach, you're such a great motivator. What do you say to him at halftime all the time? What's your secret?" He told the guy, he said, "Listen, it's real easy. I recruit self-motivated, highly motivated guys. You know what I mean? They don't need me. I used to always tell my players that, you shouldn't be looking for me to get you fired up to play on Friday night or Saturday in front of, national television to come back swinging, even though they got that score on you. Yeah, that's just the kind of guys, those guys, you instill that in the culture that you're just, we're coming, man. It ain't phasing us."
Yeah, I mean, I think you just put it like you said, like I said, one play.
Yeah.
It was one play. We made one mistake. We didn't spill the ball the right way. Boom, let's move on, because we outplayed them that half. And that one play gets them back in the game. But, we've got to regroup. Defense has got to be ready to go. We get a 3 and out. We get the ball back. Here we go.
Yeah, I got great respect for Knowles. We talked about that matchup. Knowles won the Sark-Knowles matchup, in my opinion. I thought Sark would have some more stuff for him, something that would give him problems, and basically I don't think he got it done there.
Well, I think from the layperson in the room, when I saw that game, I saw Ewers and Texas stick to deep drops with pass plays that were 15, 10 yards down the field, despite the fact that Ohio State was getting consistent pressure. And I thought, to me, it seemed like Texas should have been the one calling the screen at some point in the first half.
Yeah, I mean, they did drop back, and they were trying to play to their quarterback's strength, but that wasn't the strength of their team against Ohio State, in my opinion. They were getting pressure on Ewers with a 4-man rush. What's interesting about that game, and what's interesting about college football, listen to this. Where did Quentin, isn't that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was his first name. I want to say it right. Where did he start out at?
Yeah.
He went to Ohio State.
Yeah.
So his roommate at Ohio State his freshman year was Jack, who sacked him.
No kid.
Sacked him and scored. So what goes around comes around. So in the world of college football,
wow,
he left Ohio State, said, "I'm going to go to Texas. I don't like it here." Took his money and ran. And his roommate for his freshman year was Jack. So how about that? How about that for a little story? People didn't know that, but I looked up. I asked who, and they told me he roomed with Jack. But that's where college football is at. I mean, a lot of these quarterbacks, just like Ohio State's quarterback, where did he play last year? Didn't K-State play in the Big 12 championship last year? And then all of a sudden he's at Ohio State.
Yeah. Yeah, the receiver was he was a factor. That's the one thing about Ohio State. You know, if we look at this next game that they have, the receiver room is a big plus for Ohio State, no matter who they play.
I think that's why they're playing better, because instead of trying to win the games up front, bullying people and running the football, they're spreading you out and letting their skill players be the most dynamic players and get the ball to them. They're playing more that way, which they didn't against Michigan. And since then, they've played that way and been very explosive.
Yeah,
so, Jim, this is an interesting point. So if you look at the stats of that game, the net passing yards for Ohio State and Texas were dead even. If you took that 75-yard screen pass away, Howard had 219 yards, and their average play was actually significantly less than Texas's without that in it. So Texas did a great job neutralizing Ohio State's strength there, the wideouts.
They actually did. I mean, they had a good game plan. I mean, they should have been ahead going into the halftime, and they made a mistake on the screen, and then they were going to go in and tie the game up, and had a mistake there, and all of a sudden it's those games come down. They're so even, those teams, 3 or 4 plays, and those guys know their teams. I mean, think about this will be game 17, right, for Ohio State, correct?
I don't know if I think it's 16 for
Notre Dame,
because they didn't play in the championship game. I think it was 17 would have been the most if you played in the championship.
Okay, it's game 16 for both of them.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, because Notre Dame wasn't in a conference title.
So 12 plus 4. Yeah, they both played 4 games.
But think about that. So,
well, here's a big difference with Ohio State. In the regular season, their first quarter, they averaged, under 5 points in the first quarter all season. And that's buoyed by a 21-point outburst against Western Michigan. In the playoffs, they're averaging 14 points in the first quarter.
I see what they're doing. It's interesting. I'm watching Coach Chip.
Being aggressive, be an attack, go get them, get in the lead, play from the front. Yeah,
I see Chip Kelly. These guys are smart. You offense. They're running jet motion one way. They fake the power the other way, and then he's throwing the ball to number 4 as the motion guy. Have you seen that play, Coach?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's some new stuff, and it's how'd you like to defend that? That is a whole lot of conflict and headaches there.
Yeah, it is. I mean, Chip's a creative guy, and there's no question that he had to get back to that kind of creativity and imagination and explosiveness and deception. We call it eye candy. I don't know what you call it, but yeah, give the defense a lot of eye candy, and bad eyes are what give up big plays.
But Coach, it's all off your best stuff, though. It's like you got to defend. It
doesn't change anything for the linemen. The linemen are blocking the same play.
Yeah, the best trick plays are the ones that are the little tweaks off of your best run play.
Correct.
You know what I mean? That's the problem for defense, is defending that stuff.
Well, Jim, it's interesting you say that, because one of the points I was going to bring up with, I don't know if you remember Nick Saban after the loss to Michigan last year. He said that them coming out of a huddle caused Alabama problems. And he said, for exactly what you guys are talking about, his direct quote was, you don't have the advantage of seeing those formations until they come out of the huddle. So you've got to make calls, and that's changed our football.
It's crazy. As a high school guy, that's all I see is, mostly you see both in high school. You see huddles and then, staying at the line. And yeah, they had their whole plan, looking at the signs and whatever the hell they were going to do based on, and that's leadership, Coach. Jim Harbaugh made a decision. He's like, there's a lot of people that don't like Michigan. They might have some of our signals. I'm sure that went into some of his thinking too, that some of that. But yeah.
Well, you're going to find this interesting. Ryan Day explains Ohio State's latest cutting-edge offensive innovation, the huddle. Yeah. So Ohio State went to calling plays in the huddle and breaking in the huddle this year, and that's their innovation.
Yeah, Coach, sometimes a team just coming out in a huddle and coming to the line of scrimmage real fast, that can be a problem getting lined up properly, opposed to them just standing there, and then everybody's looking at each other, and then they slowly line up. There's sometimes adjusting is coming out of a huddle can be more difficult.
Well, what a lot of people don't understand, unless you're in football, and especially they don't understand how defense operates. They make a call on defense based on what personnel group is on the field. So they have 11 personnel, 20 personnel, 21 personnel, which is the number of tight ends and receivers you have, and then you count from there, running backs, so forth. Anyway, these personnel groups, they make a call. Then they wait till you come out and show the formation, and with that, the call gets adjusted. So this call could be played 4 different ways based on what the formation is. And the safeties and the inside linebackers usually communicate to the front and the secondary what's our adjustment from this call into this call based on the formation. And with a huddle, like you said, much less time to get that communicated. Right. And I worked for Nick Saban. I don't know if you guys know, I was a GA for Nick. So I learned that he's making a call based on personnel that somebody's in the press box telling him it's 21 personnel. And he goes, okay, we're calling this. And then with that call, they have a check for every formation within that call. And so coming out of the huddle gives the defense way less time to make that check.
That's right.
And if you're not used to practicing that way and doing it in a big game under stress and a lot of anxiety going on the field, that mistakes get made.
Yeah, a lot of guys, and Coach, you know this, a lot of guys will do, that's part of their scheme, Rob. They will come out of a huddle and line up and run their offensive line to the line of scrimmage and come out unbalanced or some crazy formation and try to get the offense screwed up or the defense not adjusted properly. Sometimes that works. Sometimes you get your offensive lineman jumping off sides or the ball, they try to rush so fast. But yeah, that's all coaching, man. It's all about deception, man. I used to quote Sun Tzu, Coach.
The art of war.
All warfare is based on deception. Every single down, the offense is trying to screw the defense with something that's deceptive, even off their best play. They're trying to screw you with something to fool you. And we're trying to do the same thing them. So all warfare is based on deception.
Yeah, and Ohio State it wasn't just a deception. Ryan Day made a conscious decision to reduce the number of snaps. And with that offensive line that they had some issues with, they had some changing personnel, to allow them to do exactly what Coach said in the huddle, get that call in place, and be confident with it. But I want to tell you something, guys, that I found amazing about Ohio State over the last few years. In 2018, they ran 80 play. They averaged almost 81 plays a game. Every year since then, it went down. It went to 76, 71, 70, 67, 63, and this year to 62. And if you mention to most fans that Ohio State was actually slowing their offense down, they'd look at you like you were crazy. Can't be true.
And that was a trend in football, was how many plays, because when teams came out and fastballed you the whole game and ran 85, 90 plays, defenses weren't ready for that. Now defenses are ready for that. So they've gone the other direction to throw the curveball to them instead of practicing a 2-minute tempo all the time. Now they're into a huddle, slow the game down. But the part that I don't think a lot of people understand, if you add up, we just said they played 16 games. So they're averaging 18 plays less a game over 16. So multiply 18 times 16, and that's how many less plays the starting center played this year for Ohio State. Now, that doesn't seem like a lot to somebody. That's 18 less car accidents that center was in every Saturday, just so we're all clear. Because every play is a car accident for those offensive linemen, and you add up 18 times 16 and see what that comes out to, and then ask his shoulders, neck, head, and body if he feels better week 16 than he did 4 years ago when he was, a redshirt freshman, and he's going to say, I feel a lot better.
Yeah, depth is so crucial, and how well you recruit. And coach, and Rob, let me just say this to you. Look at the Tennessee game and the Michigan game versus Ohio State. Which team would you rather play defense for, Tennessee or Michigan in that football game? Michigan only scored 13 points, but you know what? Their offense huddled. They controlled the ball. They made some first downs. They kept the defense off the field. Tennessee's in there, and they're punting the ball in 45 seconds and do nothing. You know,
Well,
he's
yeah,
trying to.
and people don't want to talk about that because the analytics guys don't correlate time of possession to anything. The two things the analytics guys talk about are explosive plays and turnovers. That's all they talk about. But they don't understand the wear and tear of defense. If you have the ball 37 minutes and your defense is only on the field for the rest, I mean, it's much different. I mean, it's just so much different.
Coach, another thing.
3 minutes versus 37 is a big difference in time that you're on the field.
Another thing that I thought might have been a factor, how that helped Michigan in that game, it was cold. And as an offensive guy, you're sitting there for 15 minutes and Michigan's got their offense chugging down the field. Even though they didn't end up in scores, I think that the Ohio State offense never really got in a rhythm because it was so cool that day. I think some of that stuff is a factor.
I do too. Momentum, getting in a rhythm, just staying warm, quarterback staying warm. I agree. I think that's all part of it. People that don't play the game don't understand that.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, it's interesting stuff. But they've changed their styles. Ohio State's changed their style, and part of that too is everybody made a big deal about the signal stealing and all that. Okay, I get it. Every single team at that level has people assigned to do nothing but try to steal signals during the game, steal signals off the TV copy, steal signals off of all the video that's exchanged. Because when Ohio State plays Notre Dame, they have all 15 games that Ohio State played. And if there's video clips showing them signaling in plays, they can memorize those signals and try to learn them and steal them. They do it during the game. I've been on staffs where by halftime you figured out some of their signals. It's legal to do during the game. So by huddling, there are no signals.
Coach, I understand it, man. I'm a 25-year high school coach. I knew of a team that used to film us and watch me as the defensive coordinator doing my signals. I would look at the press box and flip them off. I'm like, but at the high school level, I'm trying to get my guys lined up right. And if you think you're going to figure something out I didn't even care. I didn't even care half the time because.
Yeah, I get that, but there's people at the college level that are really smart.
No, I get it. No, I'm not downplaying it. I understand.
Paid $80,000 to $100,000 a year to do nothing but try to figure out their signals. Because if you can help your defense or offense score one more touchdown or make one more punt, cause one more stop and get one more punt, it's worth it.
Yep.
It's worth it because winning these games and not winning these games can be the difference between 20 to 40 million for the university.
Yeah.
Don't kid yourself. Winning these games and not winning them, there is huge, huge money at stake for these institutions.
Yeah, recruiting too. One last note on the hurry up deal. I always felt, Coach, when I had inferior talent, and when I was a young coach, we playing these teams that had 60 kids. I had 25 kids. I wanted to slow the game down. So we're running it. My offensive coordinator has the stopwatch. We're trying to take every second off the clock, stay in bounds, so that we don't, to shorten the game. So normally, Rob, the teams with more talent would want to get more reps, speed up the game. And the guys that have inferior talent and would want to shorten the game. That's just in general knowledge about that.
That's normal way of thinking. I mean, that's traditionally the normal way of thinking is if you think you're not quite as good, slow the game down.
Yeah.
But Ohio State slowed it down for whatever their reasons are. I give you my opinion of what I think they are, but I have no idea for sure why they're doing it.
What about Penn State, Rob? You want to talk about that game?
Yeah, I was just going to say, a perfect segue is Notre Dame's a team that likes to do what you guys talked about. Slow the game down, keep the ball, keep the clock running, use up as much of the time as they can. Just like they did a couple weeks ago where they ran 37 plays for 91 yards and had almost the entire second half of the game.
Yeah, interesting. That was an interesting game because, again, I think the difference in the Notre Dame Penn State game was really Riley Leonard. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because the quarterback run game changed everything because they weren't doing much, and then they decided to win this game, we're going to have to run our quarterback, and they were nervous about running him, and but he was able to make critical plays for him. And he made a few critical passes too. I was impressed with that. Didn't he leave the game for a second, have to go into the tent? Then they took him in the locker room right before the half. And then he regrouped and he came back out. And even all that said, instead of him just handing the ball off and dinking and dunking, they were running him to win the game. When they needed it, he ran the ball.
Yeah, Coach, my reasoning last week justifying Notre Dame, and so I was 1-1 last weekend. I took Notre Dame for two reasons. I thought Al Golden would be better than Tom Allen. I thought that Notre Dame would have an advantage there with Al Golden. But Tom Allen was every bit as good as Al Golden. Those guys were a push. That was a fair deal. Then I thought the quarterback, just like Leonard would be better than Aller. I thought exactly like you're talking about, his ability to run, make a couple first downs with his legs. And then he throws two interceptions early in the game. He had two picks. Yes. So I'm like, that's not playing out. Aller did not have a great day throwing the football, but he didn't throw any interceptions. And then until the end, that's when I text my buddy, boy, old Aller came through for me. The kid made a hell of a play at Notre Dame. It wasn't an easy pass to pick off, but that was really a big, huge deciding factor in the game. Is the one mistake Aller made.
I know this doesn't have anything to do with the game, but I don't know if you know the coaches go in the portal too. So Tom Allen just left Penn State and went to Clemson for
1.9.
No, yeah, big money. So one and done at Penn State. You make it to the Final Four, and all of a sudden you're headed to Clemson, South Carolina. So he's going to be Rob's neighbor down here now, but he's probably got a little bigger house than Rob.
Yeah. Coach, you know why I like him so much? Because I'm an old high school coach, man, 25 years. And Tom Allen was a high school coach for a long time.
Yeah, in Florida, in the Tampa area, he's a great high school coach.
Yeah, he was a successful one in Indiana. So anyway, I'm always cheering for him. But he did not get out coached. And it came down to anything. It was the quarterback was a factor there. So,
he was. And But the coaches go in there. This is the time of year the coaches are in the portal. You know what I mean? So they're all looking around.
Let me ask you guys an opinion. So I've always thought Notre Dame's defense was, one of the elite defenses this year in college football. Do you think there is a big drop off between the Texas defense and Notre Dame's defense?
Go ahead, Coach.
I don't think there's a drop off at all. I mean, I think Notre Dame's defense, the way they play and what Al Golden does with them and how they understand their personnel, I think they're just as good as Texas on defense. So I think they'll be ready to play. And Marcus Freeman's a defensive coach. So he believes in defense. He emphasizes defense. I promise you they're not eating last on defense over there. I promise you they get on the bus first. I promise you they're well taken care of because he was the defensive coordinator before he ascended to the head coach there. And so a lot of those players, I'm sure, when he was the defensive coordinator, were recruited by him because Notre Dame doesn't take a lot of portal kids. No. They're mostly a high school recruiting development program. So, I'm sure Marcus has been in all those homes recruiting those guys. So those have been his guys for 3, 4, 5 years now, since he's been there. And he loves those guys, and I know he knows how to get them juiced up along with Al Golden. So they'll be ready to go. They'll be ready to go.
Coach, you're exactly right. That last game of the top 100 players that played in that game, I think it was 85 or 87, are with the team they signed out of high school in that Penn State Notre Dame game with. So, the development and retention.
Right.
And then you got to have the money to keep them too, though. You got to have the money to keep them.
Right. And Notre Dame's very judicious about who they go get to bring into their culture. to bring in their institution, because not everybody fits in South Bend and the Notre Dame culture and what they need, but they can go out and, like they've done the last 2 years, they've gotten I think the quarterback from Wake Forest and then the quarterback from Duke. So in their pseudo conference that they so kind of play in, the ACC, which is, they're not technically in it, but they are. They play like 6 ACC games a year, I think, 5 or 6.
Jim, your opinion on Notre Dame's defense as it compares to Texas?
I think Notre Dame is going to be a little bit better. I think they're every bit as good. You've got the Al Golden, Chip Kelly matchup, and that is a good tough matchup. The receivers for Ohio State is the one area that is special in this football game. I'll just give you my thoughts real quick on this game. Then I think, these guys played each other twice in the last 4 years, and both games were like knockdown, drag out, close battles, right, Coach? They were wars. Okay, so this is why I bet Notre Dame. I got them early in the week at 9.5. That was part of my thinking.
Oh, you got them at 9.5. Yeah, the line's at 8.5.
Yeah, it went the other way. So I got it. I'm like, so my thinking was this. I'm looking at these two teams, and I see Ohio State there's a lot of guys that are pushes. Okay, I talked about Golden versus Chip. Two great matchups there. Knowles and Denbrock. I think that's how you say his name.
Yeah, Mike Denbrock.
In the quarterback position, these guys are almost clones of each other. They're almost clones. The kid at Ohio State, I don't know. He's been known to throw some bad passes, but they're almost clones of each other offensively. The slight edge is Ohio State's receiver room. Notre Dame, the running back should be healthy. I was going to say slight edge. Maybe Ohio State's two running backs are pretty damn good, but slight edge with Ohio State with the receiver room. Okay, so I'm trying to find some other advantages here. They played 2 games recently, same staffs, and they were wars. They were knockdown, drag out, last second war. So why are you giving me 9.5? Why are you giving me 9.5 this game? That's the bookies are basing it on the Oregon game, Coach. That's what everybody's thinking about, what Ohio State did to Oregon.
Right.
That's how the nation's thinking. But I'm not thinking like that. That's why I took Notre Dame with the points, and that's my justification for it, because I don't see Ohio State knocking Notre Dame off the ball to run their damn football. Notre Dame's got some big, strong, tough dudes in there. They're not going to push them off the ball, especially with some of them guys on that offensive line for Ohio State that are missing.
Yeah, that's the piece that none of us know, because you don't have to disclose it in college football, is the injury report. Because when you're playing this many games, the war of attrition, this playoff is a war of attrition. And I've noticed guys getting hurt in these games, and they plug in the next guy, and then we don't know if they're coming back because they don't have to tell us. They don't have to tell us if those linemen who left. Notre Dame's left tackle left the game and did not return in that last game. And they put a kid in, Baker from Arizona, who I know, I recruited him. But they put him in, and he had never been a starter before. So he's playing in that game after the starter's out. They had another guy, Rocco Spindler, who's from Clarkston, Michigan. He went down. He left the game. Are those guys back?
Yeah.
Are they not playing? At Ohio State, they had to move the center out to left tackle. They had to do a lot of things. They've had injuries. Are those guys back? Who's playing? How are they piecing it together? That's the part, the unknown. So it's hard for me because I'm a big O-line guy, as you know, and I believe the war is going to be won in the trenches. And these games are always decided, as the Texas-Ohio State game was. It was decided on the 3-yard line. It will be decided in some situation like that, in my opinion. And I don't know which team is full strength or in better suited for this game. The skill guys are all going to play. They're all good. The quarterbacks are going to play. They'll spread them out. They'll do their thing. But when you got to get a yard, when you got to get a stop, when you got to score, whose offensive line, whose defensive line's full strength? Because Notre Dame lost the starter on defense that's out for the season. So
And they had 2 offensive linemen go down in that game last
and
week.
they had 2, like I said. So I'm not sure still. So I've been thinking about this as we lead up to picks for this game about where I'm headed, because the point spread makes it interesting.
Yeah, Coach, let me tell you, I've been cracking bookies for over 20 years. Okay, I got bookies that have cut me off. Okay, and what we have now, I'm keeping it real with you. What we have now, the ability to bet live, and Rob, when you have the ability to get me and Coach because I bet after I watch a couple series now. My most of my bets are live now. I watch a couple series. All those questions are gone. Is this guy playing? What's the weather condition? Is it raining? Is it pissing? We didn't know what's going on with the weather. We don't know if this kid's, all this stuff we don't know. But now, guys like you and me, Coach, you can look at the line of scrimmage. I watched the line of scrimmage the first couple series because that tells you a hell of a lot.
And who's getting knocked back? Who's getting knocked back?
That's right. You look at the line of scrimmage. So anyway, I guess the answer to my question is, Rob, when you find a way where Coach and I can tell you how we're betting live after a couple series and people can tune in, I'm telling you, then and Coach and I start cracking dudes because we're making sense based on when you have 2 series on each side of the ball. I've made a mistake, Coach. At times I'd make a bet after 1 series. It's not enough. And I've gotten screwed. I got to give myself at least 2, a good 12, 15 plays each side of the ball to get a feel for the line of scrimmage.
I got to clarify one thing. I make picks and I say things, but I've never bet on a college football game because I'm still an NCAA coach.
I'm sorry, Coach. I'm not. I'm a washed up high school guy.
I don't place any money on any of these games. I give you my opinion about the games, but I've never bet once in my life on a college football.
It's for entertainment purposes only, Mr.
I got you. I'm not that guy, so I'm telling you how.
No, it's okay. I just don't want anybody listening to think Ed's an NCAA violator because I'm not.
Okay, so my thoughts are I took Notre Dame with the 9.5. Coach, the over under, in my opinion, is right where it needs to be. It's the over under for me is it's 46.5. So for me, I'm not
down to 45.5. I looked it up today.
Okay, so it's going down. So people think it's going to be so so for me that line is like I don't see no mistakes by the bookies, so I'm staying away from it. I would not.
Yeah, it's accurate. I think.
I don't like to get forced to make a pick. I think that's when people make mistakes. Rob, that line is it's right where it needs to be. I'm looking at 27, 20. It's right there. It's like that's where it's going to be. It could be
Right. And now, somebody who was very experienced at placing bets, Coach, once told me, always, if you have a reason for making it, then that's a good thing. But you got to have a reason.
Hell yeah. Just because it's Saturday don't mean you got to bet. That's one of the things I learned a long time ago. You don't just because it's Sunday don't mean you got to bet on a pro football game. You got to wait. You got to wait for the bookie to make a mistake. And
right.
For that one thing you're looking for is that's been my mindset.
But the reason I like out of all this, I like the over under is Ohio State, 16 games, scored 72 points total in the fourth quarter. Total. And 28 of those, 14 came in Texas, 14 came against Akron. Notre Dame, and we saw this last week, they run the clock, take their time, shorten the game. And, we saw Ryan Day go from 80 plays down to 60 plays. I think both of these teams are happy to keep that clock running and shorten the game.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to give you my nuggets here. Notre Dame's covered the last 10 times, just so you know. So they're 10-0 against the spread.
Wow.
In their last 10 games. So whatever that means, they're 10-0 against the spread. And Ohio State's 4-1 against the spread. So
Coach, another thing that I don't know if you're aware of these options, they have adjusted lines. And I would actually probably take Notre Dame. I should have did it earlier in the week at 4.5. And it probably would have paid 2-1 because you'd have at least a 50% chance, in my opinion, that's going to cover at 4.5 and get 2-1 on your money. You know what I mean? So I'm a big adjusted line guy on certain lines, games like that. So I hear, and you know, Rob, the points you're making, you've almost got me thinking about the under, because Jim Knowles is both these guys are so damn good on defense.
Yep.
They're not going to let Al Golden ain't going to let Super Freak number 4 dancing in the end zone. He's not going to do what Tennessee did.
And Notre Dame's not running a sweep at the 1 yard line or 2 yard line.
Yeah.
No, they're running quarterback power. I'm just going to tell you, they're going to run quarterback power 3 times in a row and probably get in, because it's hard to stop that 3 times in a row. But I mean, when you think about that, like you said, I mean, 10-0, Notre Dame's 10-0 against the spread. And Ohio State's 4-1 in their last 5 games against the spread. So betting on these teams, these guys have a pretty good feel. And I would agree with the number, the over-under. Here's what I think. Both defenses will be ready to go. They're going to control explosive plays. They are not going to give up big explosive plays. And what do both offensive coaches do? They are not going to have their quarterback drop back and get sacked or throw interceptions, because they know. So I think offenses will be a little more conservative. They'll play more field position. They'll play more. They won't be just cut it loose, go play, let it fly, because you do that and you make one major mistake and it could cost you the game. So they're going to play a little closer to the vest, I think, on offense. They don't want their quarterback to lose the game, give the rest of the team a chance to win the game. So I think that number is about right. But if I was going to go, I'd go under.
Yeah, you making good points, Coach. You got me thinking. And I would look at the scores of those last 2 games too. I think they were low scoring games. I think those things matter. It's like, you get the talent is matched up. Freeman was running the defense when they played before. So I'm going to take another look at that over-under line, and I would probably side with both of you guys on that.
I'm leaning. I would say right now, if I was forced to make a pick, I'd pick under right now.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Gotcha.
And not only that, Jim, you pick up a point on your bet there.
Yeah, that's the way to go. If you know football and you watch it and you know what the hell you're looking for, I've done good with live betting, man. Over unders, adjusted lines. You can, Coach, you can make a bet as the team is. It used to be a couple of years ago. It was you have to wait for a timeout. Now you can make that. The drive is going on. They just made a first down, and you can make your bet. So it's a beautiful thing if you. And you got to really know the history of a coach. Does he like to run it up? Or is he a guy like I never bet against D'Antonio. I never bet Mark D'Antonio to blow someone out.
Because he wouldn't run it up on you.
You have to know that. You have to know the coach. Mark D'Antonio he's not Lane Kiffin. You better know Mark D'Antonio and Lane Kiffin are 2 different guys.
Ryan Day will run it up on you now.
You better know who the hell you're going against if you're thinking, they're going to lay 50 on somebody. Because Mark D'Antonio ain't doing that. Even though he could, he's just not that kind of guy.
Did you know that Mark D'Antonio and I roomed together for a year, our first year in coaching at the University of Akron? We lived together. 2 single guys in Akron, Ohio.
Wow.
The Akron Agora.
Listen, it's a pleasure being with you guys, but that's my deal. I'm siding with you guys on the under on this game. And I really like Notre Dame, really based on the two previous matchups. And 8 points is a lot of freaking points with two teams that have nothing but 4 or 5-star kids, similar quarterbacks, similar coaches. I don't see a big edge. You guys have a great week, man.
Hey, give us 30 seconds on the Lions. What do you pick the Lions?
Oh, Lions. Oh, you know
Yeah,
what?
we got to talk about the Lions.
You got
Okay,
30
then real
seconds.
quick.
Give us a minute on the
No,
Lions.
the Lions. Let me tell you, we love our Lions, and I was hoping for Washington to win. That's me. Other people, because I did not want to go against Todd Bowles' defense. Todd Bowles is really freaking good on defense.
Really good.
And I did not want to go against Baker Mayfield. They came up to Detroit and beat us like week 3 or something. Okay, right. Baker Mayfield, I don't want nothing to do with that guy, and I didn't want nothing to do with Todd Bowles' defense. So Washington did us a favor, in my opinion. Now, I don't see the Washington defense as good as the Tampa defense. We're going to move the ball on that Washington defense. I'd rather go against that Dan Quinn defense. I look at Coach. I'm a guy that looks at. We went against Dan Quinn in Dallas last year, and we moved the ball on him. Okay. Right. I also look at Kingsbury. The Lions beat that guy when he was with the little guy in Arizona.
Yeah, Cliff Kingsbury.
We stopped him. So. Yep. Okay.
Well, the Lions are given 9.5. Your Lions are given 9.5.
That's a lot of points.
In the NFL, that's a lot of points.
Yeah, I like the Lions moving the ball against that defense. I'm concerned. The big concern I have is our defense because we got so many guys out. How many weeks in a row can Aaron Glenn, pull this magic with so many backups? And he's done a great job. The pick I have in this game is the over. Okay, I bet the over in this game because I think the Lions are going to hammer at least 31 on this team, and I think because we got so many guys beat up, I like in that running quarterback. The Lions have struggled against. Everybody struggles against good running quarterbacks that can throw and run, but this kid is he's a special kid. He started a hell of a lot of football games, so my pick would be the over in the game. I think it's 55.5. I think there's going to be a lot of points scored.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and God, that 9.5, man, that it almost makes me want to take. If someone pushed me, I have a higher confidence level in the over than I do. I would not take the Lions with minus 9.5. I would not take that. If anything, if I got pushed, I would probably take Washington. It's kind of probably the game I'd like to watch a little bit, but I'd probably take Washington with the 9.5.
Because, I might be wrong because I don't follow it quite as closely, but the Lions haven't beaten anybody by 10 points recently, have they? All their games have been so close because of the injuries they have on defense, but they know how to win close games.
Yeah.
They know how to win. So that's what makes me nervous about taking the Lions, given 9.5. I'm with you. I kind of like that. I think it'll be a closer game that the Lions will win.
The over is the pick. Guys, you have a great one. It's all good. None but wisdom from you two guys, man.
Okay. I just asked the questions. You guys provide me and the other listeners with the wisdom.
All right. Be good, Tim. Have a good weekend.
All right, go Lions.
See you then.
What if all you need to create a video is an idea?
Pack a giant bubble wrap suit and roll into the black hole and explore your own private planet.
A giant bubble wrap suit, you'll see, will protect you from gravity's glee. Just pop some bubbles and you'll be right. No need to worry, it's a funny sight. Imagine waking up to the sound of space-time being distorted each day. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Tippin is out of control these days.
Tip, score! Swayman, a tough one for a goaltender.
Everywhere you look, tip, tip, tip.
Tip and goal! Under the arm of Sarles.
Sometimes all they did was stand there.
This goes off the left leg. That's pretty much how you're going to beat Markstrom.
And it's always when you're trying to save.
Score! Tip in front!
No chance for Ottinger.
What? I love tipping.
Because you had that man in front of the net.
Stuff.
Yeah. So, Coach, a couple things I just want to wrap up with.
Well, let's talk about why am I in Charlotte? Why are we sitting next door? I was in Charlotte for the National Coaches Convention, drove out here to Lake Lure, about 80 miles west, where Rob now lives with his beautiful wife. And so we're doing the show together. We were neighbors down in Fort Lauderdale for a long time, but it just so happened that the American Football Coaches Association was here in North Carolina. So we just finished a week of meetings and a convention, and there's a lot of things on the table that are going to change the landscape of college football again, and it's been changing every year drastically. So Rob's going to talk about a little bit about some of the things that we talked about at our convention. I'll give you my thoughts on those.
So, over the past couple of weeks, one of the things we talked about was the portal.
Right.
And the problem with the portal, how unfair it was to teams and coaches and even the kids, right? Having to make a decision, transfer or play in the bowl game, play in the playoffs. And I think there's some movement on that at the coaches convention, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of – the portal has provided the players an opportunity to move unlimited free agency with very little restriction. And that's great for the players. It's not so great for coaches, teams, and institutions because you don't have a team, you have a roster, and you can lose 20, 30 kids every time the portal opens. So a lot of these teams that were playing in these bowl games this year that had good seasons played poorly in their bowl games because they had 25 players on their roster that were in the portal trying to better themselves financially or better themselves location, better themselves at a higher ranked institution, higher level of football than group of five maybe. So it's very hard to manage a roster because we don't have personnel departments in college. We don't have people, a whole dedicated personnel side. The coaches always did that. So now they're creating personnel or departments to manage a roster better. That's a new area of college football that has to be budgeted in. So, but the portal being open and unlimited free agency and being able to move once or twice a year is a bit much. And so we've made a proposal that to limit to 1 time a year transfer instead of 2 times a year transfer. And I think that's going to benefit everybody. It's still going to allow a kid who's not happy where he's at or feels like he needs to move the opportunity to do that. But to move and go to a new school in January, go through spring ball and say, nah, this isn't for me, and then move in May and go to another team, this isn't for me, then go again in the portal. I mean, every 6 months these guys are transferring, and it's not good for them, and it's not good for the programs they go to. It's not good for the coaching staffs. And so we're going to push for legislation to maybe limit that.
Well, and ironically, we talked last week about one of the things that people weren't aware of, which is the admissions office not being open over Christmas break. And sure enough, it was a unanimous vote that the FBS coaches said January 2nd to the 12th, which again works into what you and I talked about last week. Now the staff is there. You're not overburdening the school admission staff and whatnot. So,
yeah, that the windows are going to get more in alignment as people figure out the rules need to match the calendar, the school calendar, along with the football calendar, along with the recruiting calendar, and then the rules. They all need to mesh to make this continue to make college football the great game that it is. So it is a great game, but there's just a lot of pieces they need to figure out over time, and it takes time to figure all these out. I don't expect everyone and all the answers to be, because everyone has a different point of view. Are you maximum what's best for the player, maximum for what's best for the player revenue? Are you maximum what's best for your institution? Are you max what's And everybody has an opinion on that, but it's always going to be a happy medium. It's always going to be, how does this work for all the parties? And I think we're getting closer to that.
So let me ask you this, just, and I know it's just hypothetical, but how does this change? I think 2 weeks ago we talked about the kid they're snakes, right? Syracuse. The coach called out that there's kids that are talking about transferring before they're in the portal. How do you see the kids? Do you see more kids participating in the bowl game since that transfer window's not open? And if they don't, is that a more clear signal to the coaching staff? How do you see that playing out?
Well, yeah, if they move and enact these rules and you can't go in the portal till after the bowl season, then these kids will play in the bowl season. And if they choose not to, then they're kind of indirectly telling you that they're looking to move. And so you kind of know what you're looking at. But I think you'll get more participation in the bowl because, once again, if you had a great bowl game, maybe you change your mind and decide to stay. Maybe a senior who wants to go to the NFL, who says, I'm not going to expose myself to play in a bowl game in Dallas, and I don't want to do that, then all of a sudden you're a second-team kid who was disenchanted and thought portal, and then you get to go start and have a great bowl game, and the coaches love you, you love what just happened, and you realize they had a plan for you. Maybe you stay, and maybe you don't go in the portal then. So there's a lot of things that I think could benefit by opening the portal after the majority of the bowl games are over.
Yeah, and this might be the case where the money interests align with the coaches and the school's interests, because there were some of those bowl games that were unwatchable, and they were unwatchable before they kicked off because of the number of players not participating for one side or the other.
I mean, one in particular that was close to my heart because Tim Beck is a dear friend of mine. I coached with him at two different places. He's a head coach at Coastal Carolina, and they had maybe 25 guys who didn't participate in their bowl game because Coastal Carolina is a group of 5 school and really good. They've had really good players there, and really good players at a group of 5 school get recruited to the Power 4, and or they try to, and they put their name in the portal and So it's hard for these teams at the group of 5 level and the lower tier Power 4 teams to, get these guys not to go in the portal when the portal opens December 2nd and they say, screw the bowl game. I'm going to go see if there's a better opportunity out there for myself. And a lot of times there's not, because less than half the guys in the portal are getting something. So not everybody that goes in the portal walks away with the bag, so to speak, walks away with what they had hoped. Less than half of them do. So it backfires on them, because when you go in the portal, the school you play for takes your scholarship, just so we're all clear. They take your scholarship and they're allowed. So you want to go in the portal, you're allowed to transfer. We're allowed to take your scholarship. Can we give it back to you? Sure, we can. But sometimes, as we all know, it's hard to mend some of those things that happen like that. But anyway, that's something that's going on. And I think that legislation will be beneficial for a lot of reasons. And then limited it to 1 transfer a year, I think is beneficial. So these kids that have been playing in the college football playoff past what would be the portal cutoff date, and they think they might want to go in the portal, they'll just go through the motions in spring ball, and then they'll go in the portal in May if they have a May portal. So we'll see how that goes. But
yeah, that recommendation is all it was, has to be approved by the powers that be, the NCAA, and Lord knows who else has to sign off.
And what you guys have to realize too, listening, just because the NCAA passes that rule does not mean that someone can't take it to court and beat that rule. Just like I don't think there's many coaches that thought junior college shouldn't count against your eligibility, but the federal courts thought that junior college shouldn't count against your eligibility. So you can go to a junior college for 3 years and then go to a 4-year school for 4 or 5 years and play. So you can play what is essentially college football for 8 years now legally, where you never used to be able to do that unless you had waivers for injuries or hardship cases. So now you can just say, I'm going to go to junior college and play 3 years. And then when I turn 21, I'm going to go to a 4-year college and I'm going to play there 5 years. And I'll be 27 and I'm just going to become a grown man, because men are usually fully matured about 25 to 27. And you hit your peak then, and you hit your high earnings, and you make a lot of money in the college football ranks. But 7 or 8 years that you're on scholarship means high school guys aren't getting scholarships. And so the downside of extending guys' career to that length means future players in high school, you people listening that have sons that are 13, 14, 15, 16, there's going to be less scholarships for your kids to play at the higher level. So your kids may have to go to Division II and move up, or go to junior college where it doesn't count against you and move up.
So, we talked about Penn State earlier, right?
Yes, sir.
Dennis Franklin now 1-15.
James.
James Franklin 1-15 against AP top 5. He loses Allen to Clemson. What does Franklin have to do to go to that next step for Penn State to return to the Final Four or even the championship next year or the year after?
Wow, that's a tough question, because James has done a great job at Penn State. He brought that program through a lot of hardship to where the stability there. They're a double-digit win team every year. They're competitive for the conference title every year. They've won a conference title. They've played in the conference championship. They have high-caliber recruiting. They do a great job of recruiting high school players.
And developing them.
And developing them. And, but in the day and age of transferring, and the day and age of the portal and all this and NIL, I mean, Happy Valley is 3 hours from anywhere. It's in the middle of, so it's a beautiful college. It's a beautiful place. I know the Penn State grads, but for a kid who might be from Atlanta, Georgia, that has to choose between Austin, Texas, Miami, Penn State, Oregon, or USC, that's probably the least desirable location. So I think what James is doing is amazing. I think he's doing an amazing job, because he's a relationship builder. He's a recruiter. He knows the kids, and they come to play for him. But it appears that they've had Saquon Barkley there, who's the best running back right now active in the NFL. But it just comes down to making plays in critical situations, and that's usually quarterback driven. So he's just got to keep recruiting and keep getting the quarterback to play at high level. And I think Drew Aller will come back and play another season, and he'll be even better next year. I know he's upset about the interception that he threw. That was costly for him right there at the end of the game. But, I don't know for sure what James is going to do. I mean, he continues to reload with offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators who coach there and then move on for whatever reasons. They're well paid. They're well compensated. And
he seems like a good guy. I wanted to root for him, not necessarily root for Penn State or even against Notre Dame. I just wanted to see him have that success, because he's been so close, so consistently, certainly the last 5 years.
I agree. And he runs his program the right way. I think they do everything the right way at Penn State, and they develop the players, and they send a lot of really good players into the NFL. So, I mean, their time will come. They got to just keep chopping wood. They got to keep doing their thing. They got to believe in their system, and they're so close. They're right on the doorstep. But it's going to come down to a couple players, and they, making plays in critical situations. And one of these days they'll get those things. They'll happen for them. And then once they break that door open, it'll happen all the time, I think.
Yep.
And they're right there at the cusp of that. And that's going to be dangerous for the rest of the league. I can tell you that, because when they do, and that floodgate opens, they're going to be, one of the teams that are coming out of there with more conference titles.
Who's up next for them at defensive coordinator, do you think?
I don't know if they have somebody on staff that they would promote, or if they would go out and search the college landscape and see. I mean, it'll be interesting to see. Tom Allen made sense hiring him because he was a Big Ten coach. he had great success at Indiana as the defensive coordinator, then became the head coach, and they still played great defense. And so James knew him very well from coaching against him for multiple years. I don't know. Is there another guy like that in the Big Ten that, because familiarity with the conference is very important, but I mean, Ohio State didn't do that. They went to Oklahoma State to get their DC. So it'll be interesting to see where they go to get their defensive coordinator and who they tab with that responsibility. But James it's an attractive place, and he'll find the right guy to fit into the culture there at Penn State.
So what else? By the way, was Coach Belichick at the conference?
I believe he was. I did not personally get to see him, but those guys kind of go in and out to the different head coaching meetings, and because they get swamped, a lot of people know there's jobs available at North Carolina. Everybody wants a picture, a photo op, an autograph, talk to them, and they really don't promote themselves that way and they have agendas that they're, so he was there and he was involved in head coaching meetings and he was around. And I do know some people that saw him, but he didn't just hang out on the convention floor and kind of spend a lot of time getting a lot of attention from the coaches. But I think most all the head coaches are there representing themselves. Yesterday, they had head coaches meetings to discuss all these different things and vote on and push for legislation to make the game a better game. And so I did see a lot of head coaches that I knew and as soon as those meetings are over, they kind of walk fast back to their hotel. And, if you know them, they'll stop and say hi, but they're pretty on the move. They're usually protected with an entourage of assistants that kind of protect them a little bit.
Any other big news or any kind of any other news that you see coming out of the conference?
Not really right now. I think the big thing is, that they want to move the NIL was outside the athletic department. So the name, image, and likeness, the ability to pay your players was not associated with the athletic department. And if you tried to get involved in that, you would be suspended. It's illegal. It was done by an outside entity, and everybody started calling that a collective. They want to move that in-house. They want to move that into the university where the university controls it. So they control that pool of money. The other thing that's beneficial about this is people don't understand. When a guy donates $1 million to the NIL, now it's not tax deductible. If they move it into the auspice of the athletic department and he donates $1 million, then he can write it off. So they want to get that done because the donor base is drying up for some of these schools. And by bringing it in there and making it a tax advantage to donate, the wealthy will be more apt to donate more with the tax advantages versus donating to a collective, which you cannot deduct from your taxes. So I think that's the way it'll go. And then with that, there'll probably be some kind of salary cap where it's a $15 million is the max you can spend on your team, or $20 million, or whatever that number is. Because right now it's unlimited. If you want to spend 15 and somebody else wants to spend 40, they can. And that really could get skewed with the high dollar teams, or certain teams are, have billionaire sponsors, billionaire alumni that giving $25 million is a drop in the bucket for some billionaires, and they're willing to do it. Well,
or the billionaire has a girlfriend who's an alumni.
Yeah. Girlfriend has a billionaire boyfriend who she went to Michigan. And so all of a sudden the best quarterback in the country is going to go to Michigan. So I don't know how that happens, but yeah, it's something to just have more control over and be more responsible about the spending of dollars, and to make it more prudent and a little bit leveler playing field and get some control. I mean,
are there any restrictions with the collective in terms of what the owners of the collective can pay themselves in terms of salary? Or
no, there's no rules about that. If you want to pay your starting quarterback $10 million a year and somebody's willing to pony that up, you can. As long as pro quo, though. I mean, he has to do things by contract to earn that money. it's not just given to him. He
Like
has to
appearances, or what do
he
you mean by that?
He would have to do appearances. You would say, well, if you do a billboard for us, we'll pay you this. If you come to our car dealership, if you come and speak to if you do these things in the community, you do these, that you get certain amount of money for doing those. And it doesn't have to be normal wages. And it doesn't have to be what they pay me. It would be what they could pay whatever they want.
So if, let's say that you and I have a collective and we're going to go get AJ, the producer of this fine show, and sign him to a name, image, and likeness.
Yes.
The contract we give him, obviously, you just said, will contain some things that he's obligated to do. Does at any point does the school have to review that? Do they require to review it? Is it simply between the player and that collective?
My understanding is that the compliance office reviews it to make sure that it's okay, but the compliance office doesn't give that to the coaching staff. The coaches don't get to see it, but I do think that there's consultation with the compliance to make sure, because what you don't want is the kid to do something and then it was found out that the collective was doing something wrong in paying him and it wasn't pro quo the way it should be, and then the kid is rendered ineligible. So I do think that a lot of those things are run through compliance, checking them off and making sure that the contractual stuff, but the coaches have no involvement in that. We cannot lead the people to a business. We can say, hey, I'm going to drop you off over here at this dealership. I'm going to drop you off over at this mall. And the guy who owns the mall is going to be at the food court and he wants to meet you and talk about, if I do that, I could get suspended for 3, 4, 5 games for being a part of connecting you with somebody in the collective. So it's an interesting thing, but I don't know how the collective gets their names, numbers, and knows when they're around and then talks to them. So somehow, some way, it's an interesting thing. That's why it makes no sense that the people who have to coach these guys can't be involved in paying them.
Yeah, it would seem at some point the collective talks to somebody in the athletic department to say, are you interested in that guy or the other guy?
Right. And so how that gets done, I don't know. But I mean, you got to believe there's something going on. But that direct communication with the coaches is not allowed. And then,
right.
I don't think there's going to be as big a need for agents, because right now these kids can have a NIL agent. So when an NIL agent can, negotiate with a collective, nobody knows what the agent is, wanting from the collective. Now, when the agent is going to negotiate with somebody the athletic director hired, then everybody's on board with what the going rate is, what the asking price is, what's happening here. And then you can budget the money that is allocated in your NIL to feed your team the way it needs to be paid, so.
Well, that you kind of read my mind, because my next question was going to be, if you and I start a collective and we have that billionaire donor who kicks some money in, what kind of salaries can we take? Are there restrictions? Like we take money out of that collective for you and I? Isn't that interesting?
I'm sure the people that run the collective get small percentages, but a lot of them are pretty well off. So they're doing it, pro bono to help their school, the place that they're interested in building up a championship team. But I don't know. But I mean, normally in traditional fundraising, I mean, if you raise $1 million, you get somewhere between 5% and 10% of that, because that's $1 million they wouldn't have had. And so they pay you 50 to 100,000 off $1 million as a fundraiser. Now, I don't know what they were doing as a collective guy. I don't really know how they were paying themselves, but
yeah. And a lot of the NILs are doing things like designing cards for players to sign, or, putting events together, be it an autograph session or something.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. They make public appearances at the mall. They go down to the schools, they go to schools and make appearances. They do a lot of charitable things. I mean, a lot of the NIL stuff is you have to go once a week to the children's hospital and spend a few hours up in the ward with the kids where they're sick and recovering from surgery or chemo and things. You got to go here, there. a lot of good stuff comes out of this for the community. Go to the YMCA. I mean, we have guys where I coached this last year at FAU that are doing all kinds of community service as part of their NIL payments. So there's a lot of good. So I don't think it's all bad. It's just all greed. I mean, there is a lot of money and there is a lot of whatever, but a lot of these kids do a lot of positive things for the community. And basically a booster saying, like, I believe in the local schools. So I'm willing to pay you as the quarterback to go to the elementary school and read every Thursday when you have an hour free, and you go read every Thursday. If you do that, I'll pay you a certain amount of money to go make an appearance at our local elementary school, or rotate it around the community and go to all 12 elementary schools over the course of the season. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing versus give back, and in giving back, you get something for it. So there's some good things that come out of it.
Well, and I've also seen from the collective end, the first couple of years they produce collectibles, be they trading cards or autograph, whatever. The prices, the sales were hot, they were high. And after a couple of years, it seems like they've tapped that market out. And
I think they have, because like anything, almost impossible to get an autographed jersey, because before your starting quarterback, I mean, Riley Leonard couldn't sell one of his autographed jerseys for money. So it was almost impossible to get one. Now that he can sell an autographed jersey and make a profit off of that, and they're easy to get. The people that wanted those that badly that were willing to pay have all bought them now. And now it's not as hot an item, it's all about supply and demand.
Yeah, and some of these places were charging, $10 to $15 for a pack of cards that had 4 cards in it, and you had to buy a case, and you're guaranteed to get 1 or 2 autographs. And people now have kind of backed off that market.
Yeah, so they have to be creative about how to generate revenue and what's popular right now with the fan bases and what they want to see. Do they want him in person, or do they want some memorabilia he's worn? Do they want something he signed? Do they want something he wears? What is it that the fan base wants? And it's always interesting because it's a fluid situation,
Well, I always thought the best thing that a school could offer is the experience, right? Anybody could get a Riley Leonard autographed jersey, right? Anybody can do that. But if you give the experience, being, whether it's coming to practice, the weekend of a game, or sitting in a position meeting or something like that, or being able to do something that a fan could never do. I think that's, if I were running those things, that's the thing I would want to advance the most.
I got you, and I disagree with that. I mean, it leads me to a lot of ideas. I mean, I know that we've raised money as coaches before where someone wants to follow a coach around. I've been where someone followed me around for the day, and they paid $1,000 to follow me around for the day, and that $1,000 went into our scholarship fund.
Sure, that wasn't that private detective, that that was paid to follow you.
No, but they want to see what a coach's day is like, so they come at 7:00 in the morning and they follow you around for the whole day, and it's called the coach's auction, and the money goes to whatever charity the coaching staff wants to have, and a lot of the coaching staffs have, cancer, breast cancer, or prostate cancer, or whatever, maybe that's their charity. And so people bid to spend the day or the afternoon. And so they'll come and, show up and have lunch with you. And then they'll go to the meetings, they'll go to practice, they'll stay that night, have dinner at training table, watch coaches watch film, and they want that experience, and they'll pay that money, and then it goes to charity. So there's lots of ways. So they could do that with players if they want.
Yeah, and I thought you just said a film session would be unbelievable to watch, to be in there and watch that process, I think.
I mean, to watch practice and then go in with the coaches and the players and then watch them show the film and coach off of what they saw at practice off the film to the players and sit in that would be something a lot of people would want to pay money for.
Yeah, or even, the seat on the bench, whatever it is, I mean, I was thinking at basketball or something like that, where they have the ability to sit you near the team and stuff like that.
Oh, it's great. When I was at Michigan, I sat Coach Beeline had us sit at the end of the bench, and it was Coach Harbaugh and myself, and we were sitting right next to him on the bench. I could hear every word he said. I could hear him coaching the players during the game, and then at halftime, we were in the locker room. And me as a coach at that point, I had coached 35, 36 years of Division I football, and to have that experience with the college basketball team, I was thrilled to death. I thought that was one of the greatest afternoon evenings of my life, just watching him do that. And so I know people will pay for things like that.
Yeah, it seems because, like you said, anybody can get a Riley Leonard signed jersey now. Not everybody can go have that experience, right? And so I don't know if anyone's listening in those collectives or at the school, y'all should be focused on.
Those are revenue generators.
Yeah, and what additional cost is it? I mean, maybe a meal or two. It's it's really incremental, and you're not taking time away from the players or forcing it on him. So when they take it in house, schools, if you're listening, I'd pony up for stuff like that. And I know a lot of other people who would.
Right. As long as they're not a distraction to the coaches, the coaches won't care. As long as the guy doesn't talk during the meeting and stays.
Of course,
in the back.
yeah.
As long as the guy doesn't interrupt at practice and try to call plays, it's all good.
I don't know. He might have some good ones based on some of the play calling. But, incidentally, you mentioned the Michigan basketball coach. So our UPS driver was delivering something, and he's Billy Frieder's nephew.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So hopefully, I haven't had the chance to meet him yet, but that would be interesting. I'd love to be able to connect with Mr. Frieder, and I'm sure he has some awesome stories to tell about his illustrious career.
Should we segue into the NFL playoff games this weekend for the last little bit of the show?
Sure.
Yeah, we've got some really exciting games coming up. Obviously, we had a little talk there about the Lions playing the Commanders. So Jim gave us his thoughts on that. We kind of agreed, with the line being 9.5 or so, that maybe you take Washington on the line, but the over/under, maybe you take the Lions on the over/under.
Yeah, this is one that not that I do a lot of betting, but if I had to pick one, that 9.5 is an awful lot to give.
In an NFL playoff game, that's a lot of points.
That is an awful lot of points, especially for teams that don't make mistakes. So, yeah, 100%.
Absolutely. Commanders. So you better go over.
Wow, and that you're
I know I was 2-0 on the two games that we and the one week I was 7 for 8.
Well, we both disagreed with Scarcelli on the Ohio State game because,
Yeah. Then we have the Rams. So we got Matthew Stafford, the former 0-3 were with the Lions in the playoffs, and I think he's 5-1 with the Rams in the playoffs. So he's in the playoffs against the Eagles.
The Eagles looked sharp last week,
but it's in Philadelphia, so they've had stress in LA, living in LA, stress there, distraction. Can they fly to the East Coast, bad weather, cold weather, play in an outdoor stadium and beat the Eagles? I don't think so. I mean, I think that the road trip, what they're going through out there with all the families and the disruption in LA because of the fires and that tragedy that's going on there, and it's a 6-point spread. I just feel like the Eagles would be the bet there, and it's a 44-point, I think, over/under, isn't it? 44.
Yep.
So,
wonder if the producer has an opinion on that one.
Does a producer have any strong opinions on that one? Yeah, I'm an Eagles. I mean, I'd probably go over and take the Eagles, given 6, on both of those, just because of circumstances that the LA team can't there's nothing they can do about what's going on. There's nothing they can do about traveling 6 hours.
And adrenaline will get you by 1 week on that, but you can't keep going.
And I don't go ahead. They really are up against it. I mean,
God, they pelted Santa Claus, right? I mean,
and everything went right for LA when they played Minnesota. So to me, to stay that hot and make every decision and every play go your way, because they were on fire against Minnesota. Just the law of averages in football, the football gods, everything levels out. So they may level out this week, and the Eagles have been pretty consistent and they're really hitting their stride. So
yeah, they look a lot better. So
that game, and then the Texans beat the Chargers, so it knocked Jim Harbaugh out of it. So he got into the playoffs the first year, but they didn't look good. They didn't play well. The Texans played extremely well at home, and then all of a sudden now they've got to go to where? They've got to go to the Kansas City Chiefs, and that'll be an interesting one. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, the Chiefs are going to take. I mean, you've spent time in Kansas City. Those guys are a machine. I think he's probably the best coach in the NFL. Not just with the X's and O's. It helps when you have, just like Belichick was the best coach in the NFL when he had a quarterback like Brady. Mahomes can do things that other teams can't.
Yeah, I mean, Patrick has such an understanding of the offense. He understands what his options are, and he plays for a coach that allows him to explore those options and to be himself and to make plays, and has a great relationship with himself.
And I think there's a lot of motivation there for the three-peat. I
do too, because has that ever been done? So There you go. There's motivation in that. They've always got Taylor Swift on their side, so she'll be there. I mean, there's no better tight end in big games than Travis Kelce, is there? I mean, is there a better tight end when you need him most? That's when he shows up. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me for him to have a 10-catch game in this one, because is there a matchup? Can the Texans contain him? There's just a lot of factors. And then Kansas City is the loudest, or one of the couple loudest places in the NFL to play. It'll probably be about 5 degrees, maybe 10 at game time. I don't think the Texans play in a lot of 5 and 10 degree weather down in Houston, especially in an indoor stadium. So
is it coming that cold this weekend there?
I don't know, but it just seems like I've been to Chiefs playoffs games. I went to one last year, and I was frostbit by halftime. And the people in the stands thought it was warm, and I was like frostbit, but I came from Florida. So, I mean, I was like, wow. Because my children live in Kansas City, and they have season tickets. So we were at the game, but holy mackerel, it gets cold there, and it gets loud in Arrowhead now. I mean, and that place shakes. I coached a couple games there when I coached at Kansas, Missouri games.
I mean, everything you saw with the Chiefs this year was geared toward now. It was geared toward the playoffs and returning.
They rested Patrick Mahomes in their last game of the season, to get him back to full strength. I mean, and he's had time to prepare. I mean, he's a dude now. I mean, give him
yeah, I think they make it to to play the winner of the Ravens Bills. Mr. Producer, you got a feeling on that?
I know. It was a one-score game. They had the most one-score games, I think, of any team. Yeah.
Yep.
But the over-under, I think, is 41 or 41 and a half, somewhere like that. But
that seems awfully low at first blush,
But I mean, if the Chiefs score 24, doesn't that say they go 31? Then Texans score 10. I mean, I could see. Who knows? I don't know if the Texans can generate offense because Spagnuolo now he does a great job there with their defense. I mean, I was in Kansas City, and all the talk shows were doing was talking about why Steve Spagnuolo should not take a head job. Why Steve Spagnuolo should not take a head job. That was the topic of the talk shows, not who are we playing. But it was all about him staying and don't pay him whatever he needs, whatever they offer him as a head coaching salary, just pay him that salary. I think he's the only guy who's won Super Bowls at multiple schools as multiple teams as a defensive coordinator. I know he won one with the Giants. So, I mean, he's going for, I think, his 4th Super Bowl win. Great coach. He'll be ready to go. I think they can bottle up the Texans. So I don't know. I like the Chiefs too. I don't know about the 41.5. I'd probably stay away from that one.
Stroud's so inconsistent. It wouldn't surprise me for them to blow that over and under. It wouldn't surprise me to be way under it.
Yeah, either or. Yeah, because if Steve has a plan and Stroud, the quarterback, is a little confused and can't figure it out early, I mean, they could smother him, and then all of a sudden. But we all know the Chiefs, they played a lot of close games, so we'll see. But I think they're hitting their stride right now in their full strength. So weather could be a factor. If the weather's bad, then the under would be the bet. But if the weather's good, I don't know.
Well, then there's the can't miss NFL game of the week, right? Maybe the year right now. The Bills-Ravens. It is.
No question. I mean, the Ravens just took the Steelers to the woodshed, so that was interesting because that usually doesn't happen in that rivalry. But the Ravens look good.
So did the Bills.
Yeah, and the Bills, I mean, they're going to go up to Buffalo. Again, I don't have a weather report at this point for that game. Isn't it Bills are just given a point, so it's a toss-up game, basically. They're getting a point. I know that's what they're getting a point at home. So that's interesting. That's really interesting. And a much higher over-under at 51.5. So people feel like both teams are going to put up some points. So, yeah, we need to talk about this one. I feel like it's one of those quarterbacks needs to cement his legacy and get his team to the Super Bowl. Who's it going to be? Which one is it going to be? Because they both have proven to be all pros. They both have MVP characteristics, and I know Ravens quarterback has won some MVPs, so he's already done that. But they're that type of guy. They're that type of player. They both made the Pro Bowl, and Patrick Mahomes didn't. So there you go. So Pro Bowl quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes didn't make the Pro Bowl this year. Amazing. So that being said, it'll probably come down in their hands. Which one of them makes a play in the final drive or two, that their athleticism, because those guys are freak athletes, different type of freaks, but they're athletes, and they make plays. They're creators. They extend plays. They do things that their coaches and the fans all go, what was that? Wow. And you don't know who will make the most of those, but
so I did look the weather up while you were talking about that in Buffalo. The low is going to be 8, and I think and the high on Sunday is going to be 22. So, but only a 20% chance of precipitation. So, yep.
Well, the one thing about Josh Allen, he's a big human being, and he has big hands. So whether the ball's cold or snowy or wet, which it doesn't sound like there'll be any precipitation, he can throw the ball and handle the ball because of the size of his hand and how big of a human being he is. I don't know as much about, so I'm not sure in the comparison there, but I mean, that factors in because having coached little quarterbacks with little hands have trouble controlling cold, wet balls. This isn't going to be wet, but just cold ball is not grip. You can't grip it. But if you have big hands, you just engulf it. So, Lamar Jackson, I don't know what his hand size is, so I'm not sure on that. But that's always a factor. But turnovers will probably be a big factor. So, how do their receivers handle?
Can Buffalo stop Lamar running? I mean, he just seemed like he was toying with Pittsburgh during that game.
Yeah, and they do a great job of creating runs for him. I mean, this is not all scramble, ad lib, improvised runs. They have zone read plays with somebody protecting them, slicing back at tight end, or and he's one of the fastest quarterbacks that's ever played. I mean, he has like Michael Vick speed, so it's interesting. Did you see Michael Vick got the head job at Norfolk State? So Michael Vick's the head coach now in college football in his home state of Virginia. That happened at the convention. Michael Vick's the head coach at Norfolk State.
And the ASPCA is one of their largest contributors, right, to their collective.
So as you look at that game, 8:00 at night, last game of the weekend, right?
Well, if you're in Newfoundland or somewhere, it was 8:00. So
Greenland, unless we buy
there
it.
There you go.
Nonetheless, as I look at that game, Ravens, Bills. My old coach I worked for, Willie Taggart, is the running back coach. John Harbaugh, I've met John. I've been to their complex. I've spent time there with them. I know a lot about the Ravens.
Can Lamar Jackson shed his playoff? Was that one win against Pittsburgh enough to shed his baggage he's carrying around about, the results he delivers in the playoffs? I don't know. I think the Bills are. It's a Bills-Chiefs final.
I'm going. If I'm forced to make a pick, and today I'm making the pick right now, not during the games like Jim. I'm picking the Bills right now, taking the point. I'll take the Bills at home in front of the Legion of Doom, and let's go. Is that what are they called up there? Is that the Legion of Doom?
Bills
Legion
Mafia.
of Doom is Seattle. The Bills Mafia.
Yep. So, AJ, what do you think on that one?
Yep. Yeah, this could easily be a 35-42 type of deal. You know what I mean? Easy. Wouldn't surprise me a bit, especially with no precipitation then, because the Ravens play in cold weather. So Baltimore is not a warm place to play. They've played in cold games. They've played in frigid conditions. That won't bother them. The Ravens can run the ball. They got the big tailback, and he's something. But I would stick with my thoughts. The Bills, versus the spread, and then the over/under, I would go over too. And it'll be interesting, but it'll be a fun weekend.
Yeah, that's a great way to end the weekend for sure.
How about that? Go for it. Jump in there. What a perfect weekend to get started. So we've talked about all the games. I mean, we talked about the Lions earlier in the show.
So you have to know that AJ is a Philadelphian. So, but you are a Philadelphia sports fan. I mean, they're your Oh, I stand corrected.
He's from across the river in Jersey. Are you in North Jersey, Central Jersey, or South Jersey? Because they like to delineate in Jersey where you're from. No, that's even
Oh,
better. The shore. What exit is that on the Garden State Parkway, by the way? There you go. See, folks, 88.
well, you have some clips of me getting Ed here today, don't you? Talking about a shore.
Yeah, so
I'm ready for him.
I'm going to tee it up because we're in a fairly remote area, a beautiful area in the mountains, fairly remote, cell service spotty, GPS on your phone spotty. Rob gives me an address to meet him at. I'm like 4 miles from the address. I'm turned around. I can't find him. So he's got to come and get me. So he drives me in my car back to his place. And so I'm looking out the window with his phone and I'm the videographer, taking these shots of Lake Lure as we drive in, and Rob's giving us the
little bit of history
of this location, this beautiful location in North Carolina, Western North Carolina.
All right, so we're entering into Lake Lure, and if you look off to the right, when we go through here, you're going to see the Broad River, and there's a bunch of trees and stuff that got damaged, but all of this, the water was over this road here, filled up this entire gorge. So now we're coming into probably one of the best parts of this road. The only bad thing is there's cars in front of us because you can really fly through these turns. But with a little bit of snow here, Ed, people were afraid to drive. And if you look at some of these drop-offs, you can kind of get an understanding why.
Yeah.
Yep. So they fall asleep right away while they're listening? Everyone's got a story and nobody knows what it is here. That's the
Adam Sandler's down at the local at the corner. He's got a little place up in the mountain. No, I'm just.
That's the beauty of Appalachian, man. You do your own thing and nobody asks any questions.
No one wants to know what's up that dirt road into the mountains because there might be.
Yeah.
It's just whether you want blackberry moonshine or whether you want some other kind.
And you'll see from the next clip with all the big trucks coming to clean up debris and stuff here, now's the perfect time. So this is the area that took the worst part of the brunt. This was all underwater. During the flood, we'd probably be 3 feet underwater where you and I are right now. Everything was leveled. Everything was destroyed. And right now, the level of trucks is kind of as slow as I've ever seen it. There's usually 10 trucks backed up, just taking debris. And what we're going to come up here that you'll see on the right is the old flowering bridge. It was spectacular. Instead of tearing the bridge down, they turned it into a walking garden. And now it's barely hanging on, but it's going to end up getting torn down. And then to the left, you can see still some of the houses they haven't torn down yet. And this was Chimney Rock, and it was basically erased off the face of the earth. Yeah, and it was that river, AJ and Ed, it was 15 feet wide, and in places it became 400 yards wide.
Amazing. I saw the photos of the destruction of the hurricane when it came through. Amazing.
Yeah, and a lot of people forget. You hear a lot of stuff in the news, and people just like to say things, I think, but the effort goes on. I know there's catastrophes and stuff since, but there's a lot of work left to do. It's going to be 2 or 3 years, but Chimney Rock literally washed away, so they're talking about rebuilding it, but moving it right where we were, where those houses unfortunately were destroyed. They're talking about moving the city there, so it's an exciting time to be part of this. There's a lot of planning going on. There's a lot of thought that goes into how to rebuild and make something better.
I know, listening on the radio as I drove in, FEMA has a command center here, and they're still taking applications for people to get assistance, federal assistance to help with the reconstruction of their home and to survive and get through life until they get back on their feet. So FEMA's down here right now actively at a command center taking and still helping the community. They haven't forgotten.
Yeah, the Army Corps of Engineers still here. So with the lake, there's a lot of turbidity and silt that ended up there, and Lord knows what else is on the bottom, but they're actually building the largest earth mover / bulldozer in the world. It's 2 lanes wide, and they're moving it up here so that they can kind of dredge the bottom of the lake with that when the time comes. So, yeah.
And what is there anything, Rob, that you know of, if anybody watching this or listening to it wants to help? Are there any Red Cross, anything local? Is there an animal shelter? Is there anything that you know of going on?
Yeah, one of the best things you could do would be to call the Lake Lure Chamber of Commerce. I can give you that number here in a second, but they are helping people that have businesses. They actually lost their entire office. They're working with businesses to make sure that people have jobs. They're working with people who need some of the equipment and the supplies that these businesses have, and they've done a great job promoting, the growth and the rebirth and the redevelopment of it.
Yeah, so we're at Lake Lure. Look up Asheville, North Carolina, and it's just outside of the Asheville, North Carolina area. So it's a beautiful area, and it's a shame it was destroyed by natural disaster. But these people are great people here, and I can see how hard they're working to rebuild this beautiful area. And it'll take a few years, like you said, and with the assistance of generous people and the hardworking backs of the people in this area and FEMA and other sources, I think they can make this a great place again. And it still is a great place, but I mean, get it back to where everything's more back to normal.
Yeah, and AJ,
you're starting to sound a lot like President Trump, Ed.
that number is 828-625-2725.
Got it. One more time.
828-625-2725.
Awesome. When they rebuild this whole area and everybody comes back, they are going to be pissed when they realize that you moved there permanently and you weren't just a volunteer helping out.
Exactly. But no, there's a lot of exciting things. I was just talking with a bunch of the people who are planning it. This area is, and one of the videos was the area where Dirty Dancing was filmed, where Patrick Swayze had Jennifer Grey in the water and holding her up. And
I videoed that. You could pull that up, maybe.
I'm thinking that you and Scarcelli could react that next summer on the show.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But it provides more than 50% of the tax revenue to the entire county. And along with that are a lot of jobs, that are lost. And losing the jobs means a lot of income earning. And so not only is there the stress of the disaster itself, but it's the post-stress where people aren't working. And, some people, they actually got upset with business owners who pushed to reopen quickly. And, their philosophy is, look, we need a place to people work. They need money. Their bills don't stop just because there's a hurricane and stuff. So, and it was interesting. There was a restaurant that opened called Canoe, and they were supposed to have their soft opening after the hurricane. But what happened was the hurricane, and their soft opening, they came back to the building to see what was left, and it was being used as a staging ground for first responders and everybody. And so they went from having a fancy opening for their restaurant to providing meals to the workers whenever they came in, and then giving lunches to go. So, it's just amazing the resilience of people and the help that people give here. So,
but there's something about getting back to normalcy for people that helps them deal with the tragedy, like being able to go to work and being around other people and getting back into some kind of routine. And so I see why you want to open up if you can, why you want to try to get back to some form of a normal routine to help you cope. Because if all you do is sit at home and think about all the things that have gone wrong, it's just not good for your mental health. So it's been good. I've enjoyed being in North Carolina. I've met a lot of coaches at this National Coaches Convention. There's a lot going on in college football. We want to work to continue to improve the product. We understand the landscape change these last few years. The 12-team playoff is something exciting. I think people love that. We've got to make sure that we do things to put value in the other bowl games, to make kids and teams want to be a part of those other bowl games. And one of those things would be keeping kids on rosters while those bowl games are being played.
I think that's an excellent move. And like I said earlier in the show, it's one of the first instances where the money interests line up with the coaches and the kids, really.
Yeah, and as we figure this and navigate this new area, we've got to do what benefits all parties. Because, obviously, name, image, and likeness is not going to go away. It shouldn't go away. I think it's only fair that if a kid can make some money playing college athletics and the school's going to make money off of his name, image, and likeness, that he should be able to share in that revenue. But so that's good, just managing it the right way so it doesn't consume the game and it doesn't become bigger and more important than the game. And, keeping teams solid, but what you're seeing now is that some new players are coming into play in college football because the playing field levels off and talent moves around. And so how well you do negotiating the free agent market as a college coach now is going to determine a lot of your fate for a lot of these schools that aren't one of the top 10 schools traditionally, that they can move their way up with the right decisions. Like in Indiana, there's no question that Indiana benefited from the transfer portal.
And schools like Miami did not.
Last piece there, I don't know if all the viewers are aware. I'm sure they are if they listen to a show like this, but the starting quarterback at Georgia the last 2 years just went in the transfer portal and is headed to the University of Miami. So 2 years as a starter at Georgia, won national championship, driving a Lamborghini or whatever he was driving, and he said, I'm going to Coral Gables.
$4 million.
Your help.
Hey, real quick? I believe that Back to the Dugout with Toby is coming up right now, and then at 7:00 the Bleacher Brothers show. Going from one catastrophe to another, we're starting the show out with a guy live from Los Angeles. And it was like, seriously, I don't always joke, but yeah, we got a guy from Los Angeles about the fires, and then it's a bunch of grab ass after that. But great job, both of you.
Appreciate you, man. Thanks for keeping us on track.
Thanks for having us.
See you guys next week.
See you next time.
All right, bye-bye.